The good Madam Ho Ching said, so with good city planning, not to mention land reclamation for a 3D city, we can accommodate up to 8 to 10 million people. And yet I was scolded by Dr. Vivian Balakrishnan at the last GE for raising the issue. Let me state for the record, we will never have 10 million, she said. Well, maybe he should turn to Madam Ho now and also scold her. And now we find our population surging past the 6 million mark, and the increase was mainly due to the influx of foreigners. And when you cram in more and more people on this island, there are consequences. First, prices of goods and services increase as the demand for food, energy, housing, transportation, land, etc. all go up, causing our cost of living to rise. And second, to accommodate a larger population, more flats, roads, hospitals, public transportation have to be built, which means that the government will need to constantly raise taxes and prices to increase its revenue in order to build and maintain the added infrastructure. Already, HDB tells us that it records a deficit every year, building and selling flats. Who's going to end up paying for these deficits? Third, an upsurge of the population also means more intense competition for jobs, which puts downward pressure on wages, especially when productivity doesn't increase, and upward pressure on unemployment as well as underemployment. Fourth, the environment. Forests have to be cleared, land reclaimed, and open spaces filled by more buildings and roads. Recently, Tengah Forest was razed and is now a massive HDB estate. Kranji Forest was cleared by mistake and earmarked for industrial development. Dover Forest was also cleared for housing. Clementi Forest is zoned for housing. Turf City in Bukit Timah is being developed for more BTO flats. The Singapore Turf Club in Kranji is slated for redevelopment, and a large piece of land called the Greater Southern Waterfront was reclaimed for HDB development. Who and what are we building all this for, especially when we have a declining TFR? Fifth, can the infrastructure cope with the enormous expansion of our population? Is this the cause of the constant breakdown of our MRT system? We've had collisions, derailment, short circuits resulting in fires, flooding, and cracked rails jeopardizing the safety of passengers. Sixth, this congestion in an already crowded island also adds to the already serious mental health issue and stressful lives that Singaporeans face. Here's the unpleasant truth. The prevalence of poor mental health rose from 13.4% in 2020 to 17% in 2022. All this while the ministers live in secluded and luxurious bungalows and villas, far from the madding crowd, which we are subjected to every single day. So when Ho Ching says that we can accommodate up to 10 million people, I'd like to ask her where and what type of house she lives in. So why is the PAP so insistent on increasing the population size to such unhealthy levels? Well, the simple answer is because it doesn't know what else to do. It needs to keep digging, pour more concrete, and erect more structures to maintain GDP growth and sustain the illusion that Singapore is still a hive of productive economic activity. But how many more tunnels are you going to burrow? How many more forests are you going to clear? And how much more stress are you going to pile on the people? And so far, I've described to you the problem, but I've also presented solutions on how we can overcome these problems. I've done this in a previous video, and I'll not repeat it here. I explained how we can increase the TFR while at the same time transform our economy into a high productivity and high innovation one without this crippling dependence on foreigners. I'll put up the link in the comments section. Please watch it if you haven't already. For now, what I need you to know is this. Smaller populations are not a bad thing. Now take a look at some of the Scandinavian countries. Sweden's population, for example, is not much bigger than Singapore's. It has about 10 million. But look at what they are able to produce and sell to the world. IKEA, Spotify, Volvo, H&M, Sandvik. The list goes on. Denmark, population 6 million, is home to global brands like Maersk, Carlsberg, Pandora, Bang & Olufsen, and Lego. Then there's Taiwan. Its population is 23 million, smaller than Malaysia's. Yet it has become the world's leading semiconductor maker through the Taiwan Semiconductor Manufacturing Company. It gave the world bubble tea and Din Tai Fung, Acer, Evergreen, and so on. It has even produced 4 Nobel Prize laureates. And speaking of Nobel laureates, Norway has a population of 5.5 million, but has produced 14, yes, 14 Nobel Prize winners. Finland, also a population of about 5 million, 5 Nobel laureates. Even Luxembourg, a country of only 650,000, has produced 2 Nobel Prize laureates. And what do all these countries have in common? They all enjoy a level of political freedom, including freedom of expression, that we can only dream of. Their mass media are not controlled by their governments, they are not threatened with POFMA, and their election systems are truly free and fair. In other words, their peoples can think freely, express themselves freely, and take the lead in driving their economies and societies. Here in Singapore, the PAP controls everything. In sports, New Zealand has a population half the size of ours, and yet their rugby team, the All Blacks, is world-conquering. Iceland, with a population of only 400,000, made it to the World Cup finals in 2018. Uruguay, a population half of Singapore's, is ranked 11th in world football. And here we are, still struggling in Southeast Asian football. I hope by now you can see what I'm trying to say. It's not the size of the population, it's the quality. Here too in Singapore, we have the potential, we have the talent, we have the energy to do big things. The only thing that's stopping us is the PAP squatting on top of all that happens on this island and hoarding front and center of everything we do. We need to get rid of this grotesque monkey clinging on our backs and suffocating our people's ability to truly flourish. For too long, we've left our thinking to the PAP. If we are to claim our rightful place in the world as a serious, intelligent, genuinely first world society, then let's not continue to check our faculties at the PAP front desk. Don't just accept everything it tells us. We need to exercise critical thinking and, for a change, act like a mature and sophisticated nation. I put out these videos to present to you facts and figures so that you can logically process what I say and then make informed decisions. And why do I do this? Because knowledge is power, which is also why the PAP goes to such great lengths to control the Singapore Press Holdings and Media Corp. Give a man a fish and he eats for a day. Teach him how to fish and he eats for a lifetime, so the saying goes. Learn how to fish, my friends. Don't just accept handouts and be contented. Believe me, this is the most important skill you can acquire, not just for yourself, but for your loved ones too.